Hey, Arise family. So, welcome to Let's Study Judges. And in this month's series, we're going to be studying the book of Judges. I encourage you to go over to Kandi, Nicole, Arise.com. Underneath study guides, every single day a study guide is available to you guys to get deeper into this word. And there are journal prompts, etc., to help you apply the word to your actual life. Reading the word is great, but applying the word and being able to see yourself in these stories is the whole point of it all. All right. So today we're going to be studying Judges chapter 1. And what I will tell you about Judges is, do y'all remember the stories? The young and the restless and all that. I used to watch that with my grandmother. And honey, we should have just read the Bible. Okay, we should have just bust out the Bible and began to read that because it's juicy. All right. These people in the Bible, when I tell you, they are something else, but they're a reflection of us. They are a reflection of us. We are something else. We really better be thankful for the grace and the mercy that the Lord has for us. Okay, so as we begin Judges, I noticed that it kind of starts a little bit like Joshua. Okay, so in Joshua 1, it's talking about how Moses has just passed away. And as we enter into Judges, now they're talking about Joshua and how he has also just passed away. So let's get into this word, you guys. It says, after the death of Joshua, the Israelites inquired of the Lord, who will be the first to fight for us among the Canaanites? The Lord answered, Judah is to go. I have handed the land over to him. Judah said to his brother Simeon, come with me to my allotted territory, and let's fight against the Canaanites. I will also go with you to your allotted territory. So Simeon went with him. When Judah attacked, the Lord handed the Canaanites and Perizzites over to them. They struck down 10,000 men at Bekadesh and found Ala-Bezek and Bezek, fought against him, and struck down the Canaanites and Perizzites. When Adabesek fled, they pursued him, caught him, and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Adabezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off, used to pick up scraps under my table. God has repaid me for what I have done. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. I'm going to stop, and we're going to get more into what's going on here. So, as we see, it says after the death of Joshua. When we entered into Joshua, it started off the same after the death of Moses. These people have just lost their leader, and they are looking to see who is their next leader. Unlike in the book of Joshua, we know that Joshua is the leader. He is the one that had been appointed before Moses even passed away to take his place. But with Joshua, there was no appointed direct leader. So they were looking to see who was going to be the next leader. It doesn't say here, but after I've done some research, my understanding is what most likely happened is they went to the high priest to get the answer of who it is that would be the next one to be in leadership. Judah was chosen. Judah means praise. So if you guys have been here for a very long time on this ministry, you remember when we covered King Jehoshaphat. And the way in which he won the war was that he went out with praise. Praise led him to his victory. So, of course, the Lord is again saying here, he wants praise to bring in the victories, okay? Because Judah is praise. So he's saying that Judah is going to be the first tribe that is going to go out. But we see something right here that is at the beginning of some kind of sort of compromising of what the Lord said. Say, Judah was supposed to just go by himself. The Lord didn't say, Judah, take your brother Simeon with you. No, he said Judah. All right. That means Judah was supposed to march out by himself and take his territory because it was already promised to him. But this is also showing some fear. This is showing some fear that Judah had inside of him, not to just go out and stand on his own and take his territory. He wanted his brother to come along with him. And I want you to understand that each one of these people, they came with so much more people behind them. They were leaders of this large mass group of men that came behind them. So it was Judah and his men, Simeon and his men. Okay, these were like two armies that joined together to go out and attack. So Judah and him coming together, they attack and they win. All right. They attack this one king, and this king is called Adabek. All right. And what happens is the king flees, but they catch up to him, and what they do is they cut his thumbs and his toes up off of him. And this time, that was a representation. They did this to kings whenever they seized the king. And the reason why they did this is that the king would never ever be able to hold a weapon again. And he can't really run that fast, can you? When you don't got no toes, okay? So they took the thumbs and the toes up off of these kings, and it was a way of them disabling the king. No longer again would this king be able to bring his people into warfare. All right, so that's what we're seeing here, and the king is saying that he has done this to 70 other kings. So now he's saying that basically justice is being rendered to him. Let's pick up in verse 8. In verse 8 it says, the men of Judah fought against Jerusalem, captured it, put it to the sword, and set it on fire. Afterward, the men of Judah marched down to fight against the Canaanites, who were living in the hill country of Negev and the Judean foothills. Judah also marched against the Canaanites, who were living in Hebron, which is formerly known as Hasha'ak, and struck down Shisha, Ashaman, and Taman. For there are marched against the residents of Debrir, and Debrir was formerly named Keshashak. All right, let's go ahead and get into verse 12. But before we do, I want to point out that they continue to mention the lovely Canaanites. All right, the Canaanites are going to get mentioned over and over again. And I want to bring up to you a little bit more about the Canaanites and the problem with the Canaanites. All right. So the Canaanites were the original inhabitants of the land that God had promised Israel, okay? The land flowing with milk and honey, which is spoken about in Genesis 12:7. They are the descendants of Canaan, the grandson of Noah. Their territory stretched across what today is Israel, okay? Palestine, Lebanon, and parts of Syria and the Jordan. So the Lord wanted them to completely and utterly remove the Canaanites, okay? Completely and utterly. We see up in Joshua that these people are being completely and utterly removed. Joshua is not making treaties, deals, nothing with these people. He's going in, killing everybody, and destroying cities, all right? And the Lord is wanting that to continue because these people are evil. They're wicked, all right? Their ways are wicked. They practice adultery, child sacrifice, sorcery, sexual immorality, all right? They were spiritually dangerous also. God knew that if Israel were to live amongst these people, that they would be tempted to adopt their ways, their customs, and become just like them, all right? So they were dangerous, and the Lord wanted them completely and totally removed. Keep that in mind. We see a slight interjection here of something that we covered over in Joshua. Whenever the daughter was promised in marriage, okay, and she's given over to her cousin. Remember I talked to y'all about that? Her cousin, all right. And it's in verse 12 to verse 15. Her cousin goes and he conquers the land. It pretty much stays in the family. Look, it's a different time, okay? And so we are reading about that once again. It's like it's going back to the story in Joshua, reviewing it for us and telling us how she's requesting also a spring. Remember that she wants not just the water, but she wants to grow and prosper in the area that her and her husband, cousin, gonna be in, okay? So it speaks about that once again in verses 12 through 15. Picking up in verse 16, it says, the descendants of Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, had gone up with the men of Judah from the city of Palms to the wilderness of Judah, which was the Negev of Agron. They went to live among the people. Judah went with his brother Simeon, struck the Canaanites who were living in Zephirah, and completely destroyed the town. So they named the town Harmon. Judah captured Gaza and its territory, Ashlon and its territory, and Ekron and its territory. The Lord was with Judah and enabled them to take possession of the hill country, but But they did not drive out the people who were living in the plain, because those people had iron chariots. Hold up. Let's read that again. Verse 19 says, the Lord was with Judah and enabled him to take possession of the hill country. But they could not drive out the people who were living in the plain, because those people had iron chariots. When did iron chariots become a problem? Because over here in Joshua 11, Joshua, he was like, I ain't never scared. I ain't never scared. Okay. In Joshua 11, Joshua had the conquest of the northern cities where all these men came against him. They said basically it looked like more men on the seashore than the sand on the seashore. Okay. And a vast army was against him. A number that they couldn't even see. It was just people everywhere. Okay. And these people had horses and chariots. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them, for this time tomorrow I will cause all of them to be killed before Israel. You are to hamstring their horses and burn their chariots. So Joshua and all his troops surprised them at the waters of Memron and attacked them. The Lord handed them over to Israel, and they struck them down, pursuing them as far as basically. And there were no survivors. I just wanted to bring that back up. You know what was the difference between Judah and Simeon? And over here, Joshua? Joshua was never scared. Well, he was, I'm sure. But Joshua knew that the Lord was with him. He had a different kind of confidence. The Lord and Joshua had been through so much. He had been seeing the things happen with Moses, and he saw all these miracle signs and wonders, and the Lord took him through so much. But we're seeing a new generation here. We're seeing a new generation that has heard the stories, but they have not experienced God on that level, right? So that's the difference in what we're seeing here, and how Joshua had this confidence in God that they didn't have. And that lack of confidence and that lack of seeing, not just seeing, but seeing and going through certain things with God and your relationship and him taking you through all these things, there's a confidence that's built up that these men did not have. And so we're going to continue to see that confidence problem is coming up. Okay. So the Lord enabled them in verse 19 to take the territory, but they didn't, because they saw horses and chariots. This was them not taking courage. This was them shrinking down. All right. So in verse 20, Judah gave Hebron to Caleb, just as Moses had promised. Then Caleb drove out the 3 sons of Achanan who lived there. At the same time, Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. The Jebusites have lived among the Benjamites in Jerusalem to this day. The house of Joseph also attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. They sent spies to Bethel, the town that was formerly named Luz. The spies saw a man coming out of the town and said to him, please show us how to get into the town, and we will show you kindness. When he showed them the way into the town, they put the town to the sword, but released the man and his entire family. Then the man went to a land of the Hittites and built a town and named it Luz, and it's still there till today. So here's what happened with the house of Joseph and how they messed up. They were not ruthless like they were supposed to be. The Lord wanted them to go in and conquer, remove everything, right? But they showed kindness to a man that they were not supposed to be showing kindness to. The Canaanites and the people. This is your enemy. I need you to remove them completely, right? But they went and showed kindness. This town was named Bethel, but the former name of it was Luz. They let the man go, and the man goes into another country, another land, and he sets up a new town with the same name. You see the problem there? All right. So let's get into verse 27. At that time, Manasseh failed to take possession of Bethshan and Takai and the surrounding villages, or the residents of Dorim and Mijon and their surrounding villages. The Canaanites were determined to stay in the land. I want to repeat that for you. The Canaanites are the people they're supposed to be removing, okay? And the tribe of Manasseh goes in, but it says the Canaanites were determined to stay in their land. Okay. When the Israelites became stronger, they made the Canaanites serve as forced labor. They never drove them out completely. We making deals with the enemy? We're making deals with the enemy. Oh, okay. Verse 28, then Israel became stronger, and they made the Canaanites serve as forced labor, but they never drove them out completely. At that time, Ephraim failed to drive out the Canaanites who were living in Gezer. So the Canaanites lived among them in Gezer. The Canaanites lived among them in Gezer. Zephaim failed to drive out the residents of Kiron, or the residents of Nathal, so the Canaanites lived among them and served as forced labor. Asher failed to drive out the residents of Acon and Sidon, and Abalon, Asaban, Hebon, Asik, and Relam. Y'all know, I'm sorry, I just slaughtered, okay? The Asherites lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land because they failed to drive out. So here everybody is failing to drive out. Everyone is forcing them into labor. When they do get some strength, instead of killing them off, they force them into labor. Okay. Verse 33, Nephi did not drive out the residents of Beth Shem or the residents of Bethai. They lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land, but the residents of Beth Shem and Bethan served as forced labor. Verse 34, the Amorites forced the Danites into the hill country and did not allow them to go down into the valley. The Amorites were determined to stay in the Hizzites, Elalon, and Shilam. When the house of Joseph got the upper hand on the Amorites, they were made to serve as forced labor. The territory of the Amorites extended from the Scorpion's ascent, that is from Shelah upward. Okay, here's the problem. The Lord said we're going to take the territory. Every time they've taken the territory, they went in, they completely destroyed cities and completely killed everybody and everything. Sometimes they took the cattle, but for the most part, everyone perished and the town was destroyed. Okay? But they're making compromises. It even says that some of these people were so determined. Oh, excuse me, are you the Lord's people? Is this your land? How are they more determined than you when the Lord says he is with you? No, you should be more determined than them to take what is yours, all right? They allowed horses and chariots to get them discouraged. They allowed people who really represent sin, is what I'm trying to say here. It's mentioned several times. Go through this yourself and count how many times it says the Canaanites, okay? Which we talked about the Canaanites and them being a set of people that the Lord wanted completely and totally destroyed. The Amorites also are people that are just like the Amorites. They're the rights, okay? The Canaanites, Perizzites, Amorites, rights, okay? Those are the ones that need to get eliminated, okay? But yet they are compromising with these people. Instead of removing them and killing them off, they're forcing them into labor. They are living among them. They are even said in verse 34, the Amorites forced the Danites, God's people, the Israelites, part of Dan's tribe, Danites, now they calling themselves ites, okay, into the hill country and did not allow them to go down into the valley. They're not allowing you to go in your own land. You see the compromise that's happening right now? It first started with one compromise. One thing that someone did, that's not what the Lord told him to do. And that's over there right at the beginning of all of this. It says that Judah, the Lord answered, Judah is to go. I've handed the land over to him. That's where we first messed up. Judah was supposed to go in, slaughter everybody, and take his land. Then his brother was supposed to go in and take his land. Thus says the Lord. It would have been another direction after that. But what happened is the compromise became. It came in through that first thing. They began to compromise, is what we're seeing. And as the more that they compromise, they're compromising with evil. They're compromising with what represents sin. And that's what I want to point out to you today. That's the message that we're leaving here today. We cannot compromise with sin. We have to completely and utterly destroy it. and it creeps in slowly into our lives. And it says, well, just let me stay here in this little area right here. I won't bother you. In fact, I'll do what you like. That's sin, all right? And it's showing up with these people. These people basically are having amnesia. They're forgetting the God that they serve. They're forgetting the power of the God in which they serve. And we're going to see as we continue to go on the compromises in the whole book of Judges, but how it all starts right here in Judges chapter 1. And so I encourage you to go over to CandyNicoleArise.com and get your study guide. Apply this word to your life and go deeper with the Lord and ask him, what is it that's in your life that you may be compromising on? Because sin has no place in the believer's life. We have to totally and completely destroy it. There is no compromise. I'll see you guys tomorrow.